They made a good choice at the clerk's office down.
Commission meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Chairman, I hope you didn't have my story on the.
Oh, no. Not that, you'll have Quill, Barb. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Yes. One base. Justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call of commission members. Karen, please.
Yes, here.
Terry Hillstein. Van Nelson.
Here.
Lee Van Look.
Van Landite, yes. Remember the word land, height. So, present. And welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
could I remind everyone to put their mouth tight to the microphone as though they were kissing it?
Good plan. So when you speak, do speak close. Don has a little difficulty hearing, as I do, and I suspect maybe a few others here. We have Patrick Metz here today, and before we go any further, I think I'm sorry. Oh. Well, let's do number 6 then. Let's move right up to 6. We'll change the order. Patrick, welcome to the group. You want to tell us something of yourself?
Oh, Don, can you hear me? I just want to make sure. I grew up in Richland County, out in Gillingham. I live back out there now, just over the hill from where I grew up. I am an Air Force veteran. I was in for just one stint down at Randolph Air Force Base in Texas. I worked at the headquarters at Air Force Manpower and Personnel Center. I worked with a bunch of nurses. So I don't know if you knew Colonel Margaret Korach or Minnie Campbell. They were yeah. She was a good friend of mine. So I worked really closely with them. Then I decided I'd get out and go back to college, and then I spent an entire career in college, got 3 degrees. Then I decided to go back to work and have traveled all over the world and worked in all kinds of places. I ended up back here in Richland County, late 1990s. My dad was dying of cancer, so I came back to take care of him and decided to stay. I started out as the aging supervisor here at Richland County Health and Human Services, became the business manager. There was a business manager for roughly 9-10 years, and then finished off as director of Health and Human Services for 4 years, and then retired in 2018 and was retired for 1 year. And then a good friend of mine with the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources out of Madison hunted me down in Gillingham and offered me a job as the fiscal manager for their nonprofit in Madison. So I am the fiscal manager for that, and we do all the Older Americans Act funding for aging units and ADRCs around the state. We do 70 counties and 11 tribes. So we have about a $50 million budget this year for that. So that's my responsibility. Fantastic. And that's about it. I'm married, 1 12-year-old, and enjoying life in rural Wisconsin.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be a very welcome addition to this group. I think the airmen outnumber anybody else in this bunch. I'm also Air Force 64 to 68. I spent some time in Germany, the Air Force Academy, and a few other spots, but I really enjoyed it. And you got 1 degree ahead of me. I've only got 2. So anyways, I'm a retired high school teacher, social studies, primarily U.S. history, and I love involvement in this area, and I think we're serving an excellent purpose here in town. So I'll let the Army personnel speak next. Van, it's you. You're here to protect us, you know.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Patrick is being overly modest. He had a very distinguished position with the United Nations, and so he can bring us a worldwide bird's eye view.
All right. We get to speak about Putin later.
I think Don's I worked with UNICEF in New York City for a
Fantastic.
while. So
Fantastic. So, Van, you want to tell a little bit of your history so Patrick gets to know you a bit?
Just the microphone.
Pretend you're a preacher.
Anyway, born and raised in Richland County, county board supervisor and township clerk. That's all I do. Retired state worker.
Hey, Don.
Why is it that people are so modest? Mr. Nelson is mayor of Gotham, and he's been a town clerk for 30 years, among other things, which we won't say. Oh, is it my
Yeah,
turn?
Don, you get to tell us about you.
Yes, I'm just a poor old farmer from the northeastern part of the county. I have kind of a diverse background. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. After I got out of high school, I decided that I wanted to be a priest. And can you believe it? And so I entered a seminary, and I was there for almost 4 years. And in the first year, I had intense catch up in foreign languages. I ended up during that 4-year period having 26 credits of Latin and 20 credits of Greek, both of which are not very useful to me now. But there weren't any girls in the seminary, of course. And I had gone to a public high school and that had a dominant preference for girls. And I could never quite get over it. And there was, once a month, there was a visitors, we were allowed visitors. Otherwise, we were fenced in like a bunch of prisoners. And usually the families came, and some of them had rather attractive young ladies with them visiting their relatives in the seminary. That was a source of distraction for a lot of us young fellows who were in the college department. So subsequent to that, there was an order of nuns from Germany who were responsible for cooking for us. And they were housed in a convent on the grounds, but the only access we had to them was in the kitchen. They never were on the grounds themselves. They came through kind of a skyway to the kitchen. They cooked for us, and they served on a long, what do you call it, serving table. And there was kind of a screen along the waist so that we couldn't get a good look at them. Well, it turns out that one of them was rather attractive, I thought.
You know this is to be short. We're just
Yeah, it's just
introducing
about
ourselves.
It's just about it. One of them was rather attractive, I thought. But it turns out she was homelier than hell, just like the rest of them, who were selected based upon their homeliness because they didn't want us to be tempted. But when I remarked to my fellow seminarians that I thought Sister Mary Holy Picture was quite attractive, they all condemned me for my poor vision and poor judgment. It was at that point I decided to leave. Now that's kind of a joke, but there was some substance to my reason for leaving. So since then, I went to the University of Wisconsin, and I spent 4 years in the Air Force, and then I spent about 25 to 30 years in the human services field, mostly in Portland, Oregon, though I was responsible for operations in Los Angeles and Portland. I loved the Northwest a lot, but I'm glad to be home. I came back to take care of my parents who were in their 80s and needed my help. My mother has Alzheimer's disease. I've gone on too long. I've been accused of talking too much, so I won't say any more.
Thank you, Don. Now the highest ranking airman in here, Sherry.
Well, Don, you are a hard act to follow. Anyway, retired Air Force nurse and started out actually in the Army in a MASH unit out in Denver for a year. And all those Army folks said, go Air Force when I wanted to go active duty. Anyway, so doing holistic wellness consulting now and writing and really enjoying that. So
Good. So Patrick, do you think you have a good handle on who we are?
Actually, I've known Don and his predilection for really going on and on about things. So it's, I expected that one to go. And I've known Sherry through Rotary. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was afraid to ask Sherry if she used to be a nun. I follow along with what Don just said. And Karen, would you speak, please?
This is kind of a just FYI for you guys as well. My papers are going to be through and I will officially be retired from the Army National Guard on August 9th.
This
So
year.
I've got 20 years in and so I've decided that 20 years was a good run. And so 20 years in the Army, I've been to Iraq, I've been to Afghanistan, and on 9/11, I was in basic training. And so it'll be my 20-year anniversary coming up here soon for my basic training anniversary as well. So,
Well, congratulations. Thank you. And we also have another Army personnel here, our County Administrator, Clint Langrick. I'm sorry.
Service in the United States Army, 2003 through 2000 and what was it? It was about 8 years in total. I did 5 years active duty, extended in Iraq, and then came back and finished with the National Guard. So it was good. Thank you.
So he is the top man in our organization here, so he's the one we go to. But when I used to work as a teacher, I never went to the principal. If you want anything done, you go to the custodian or the secretary, because they're not bound up with all kinds of rules and regulations. So we had to figure out who those people are. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
we would be remiss if we didn't recognize our former veteran service officer who was retired after 20 years in the Air Force,
oh, okay, yes,
Senator Kramer. And I was once told, and I forget who told me that, I asked someone if they were in the Air Force, and they said, no, I work for a living, I'm in the Army. I was certainly hurt by that, but I got over it.
Yeah. So Sandy, did you want to say anything, or you just acknowledge the fact that that happened? Okay. So, and we have any other veterans in here? We have 2 other guests. Okay. I guess that's it. So we're done with 6, and thank you very much. And I hope that you have a feeling for, who the people on this organization are. So thank you and welcome. Okay, let's go back to number 4 then. Approve this agenda and its posting. Karen?
the agenda was properly posted and sent out.
Okay. We take a vote on that, right? Accept that, or it's been a while. Clint?
We typically have not. It's just
We
for
have
your
not.
understanding, Mr. Chair, is you're kind of, you end up being kind of responsible for it, so you're just affirming that it's done.
Okay. So I do affirm that, and then we move to 5 that we do vote on. Review and approve the main meeting minutes. The ones that I had gotten from Karen, when I printed them out, it was like 3/4 of a page and then just a little bit on the back. And I kind of figured Don might have a hard time reading it, so I reprinted them out so that they kind of filled the page a little bit more. And if this is possible in the future, that'd be fantastic, okay? Karen?
After discussing with a couple of people the different things that you're seeing on your computer, they really feel that it's your computer settings. Is it a laptop or a desktop? Do you think
Got it.
maybe we could have Barb look at your computer? Because it sounds like it's settings that's on your computer because it's not coming out like that
Yeah.
for anyone else.
What I did was I sent it from my laptop to my home computer and I put it into Word. I copied it to Word and then I went to number 14 and
Yeah.
I did the standard 1 inch by 1 inch.
Yep.
And that,
So if you could maybe bring that laptop in and maybe you could have Barb take a look at it.
sure.
Uh,
That,
I mean, just as a favor.
Mr. Chairman, you won't need to print it larger for me because I have discovered that I can expand my laptop to larger and bolder letters.
great.
It takes me a while, back and forth,
Yeah.
but I can do that. Before I was doing it with my magnifier at home, my big magnifier.
Yeah.
That's on the fritz right now, and so, but I can still use if I can see to get it tuned in, I can use my computer and it'll expand the size of my letters so that I can read.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do it for me, though I
Okay.
do appreciate this larger print.
Yeah. That's primarily the reason I did that because I know that Don has difficulty seeing. Karen?
The agendas and minutes are all in the standard size font the county board uses. And so since Don looks at that, I assume that that would be the correct one.
Yeah. Well, what I'd like to do is have you just use your best judgment and come up with something that, Don would be much easier for him to read. And so if that's possible, I'd appreciate it. I'm not sure how this other one turned out, but when I printed the copy that you had, this is what I got with a little bit at the top. And the font, it looks like it might be number 8. In fact, it's smaller than that. Anyways.
Yeah,
this
hopefully
we
Barb
deal with.
Hopefully Barb can fix your
Yeah.
computer. It would be a huge favor. I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, I'll
if she
check
would.
it out, and if that's not the problem, then, well, we'll deal with it. So let's move on from there. So we need to approve the minutes as read. What's your pleasure?
Minutes be copies.
Okay.
Second.
Van moves and Don seconds the approval of the minutes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Patrick, you can vote.
Present for that, so
Okay, not a problem. I totally understand.
I have
Thank you.
nothing to do with those minutes yet.
Thank you. So they have passed and we've accepted them. We did the introductions, number 6, so moving on to 7. Advertising committee openings protocol.
This was from last month. It was asked to be put on the agenda for this month to discuss. Clint will speak to it as Carrie Severson spoke to it last month. There was some concerns that Patrick's was properly advertised in the newspapers and Sherry's position was not. And that's why how this whole thing started originally.
Okay. Clint?
So we had concerns that when we posted and when we filled the Sherry's seat, that there was not proper posting given? Is that what the concern was that arose?
I'm not certain. That seems like 3 years ago.
That was one of them. I know. That was one of the issues. And then the second issue was the committee wanted to know if it was possible if they could have some say on who was chosen for the committee as opposed to the committee on committees. That they should get to see the applications. This was from last month, if you guys remember.
Yeah.
So those were the 2 things that they kind of wanted to some discussion about.
Sure. So how we're guided on this is in regards to State Statute 59 that gives the authority of an administrator to make an appointment for a commission member. Commission members still have to be affirmed by the county board. In working with the structure language that we have, we still have a committee on committees that serves for a function. Our interpretation coming through council is that through state statute, the appointments for commissions and boards are a function of a county administrator. For a committee, called a committee, is not in that authority and still remains in a committee on committee type of a thing. To avoid, I shouldn't say to avoid, but to assure that the appointments bringing forward that I'm going to bring are going to be received well by a county board and to not take that situation of opposition to the county board unless necessary. Bringing it through a committee on committees has kind of been the path that we've marched along with making the appointments. We have language underneath our county board rules that specify how we post for district supervisors for the county board. We do not have specification on postings and a recruitment process for filling a board's committees or commissions, and different bodies feel different in how they approach that. I'm sure that Patrick can kind of managing several boards and committees with Health and Human Services as an example. There's different expectations that kind of go with it too. So the appointments for Sherry's position, the appointments for Pat's position came on a recommendation to myself through committee on committees and confirmation by the county board. Does that answer the question on
I
concern?
believe it does. Karen, does that satisfy what you were looking for?
The second, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't, this was requested. I didn't have any questions on it.
Yeah, in the first place, when we had to replace Sherry, when the first resignation came through, we operated as best we were able. And of course, I was new at this, so I wasn't quite sure which direction to go, and I thought we were doing the right thing. Sherry's name did come up. We recommended her. And of course, Clint was new at his job too, so we're kind of feeling our way into this. When the second person resigned and we got Patrick, we decided to hold back a little bit because of the discussions that had been had. And we decided to play the long game and just kind of get the other committees involved that were there. And Clint, of course, being the administrator, was the one that would have ultimately the say so. So from here on out, as far as I'm concerned, that's the direction we will be going with his guidance.
If there's more, I think the second part of the question had to kind of talk about, or the second part of the concern had to do with the body here, the commission having a say in wanting to review those types of things. I would say then at that point, it would be appropriate as a body. If you'd like to do that, bring it forward in a motion. If it was a motion to request a committee on committees to be able to review prior to appointments for commission members, if you would like to do that, that is on you folks. As Lee had mentioned, we're still kind of establishing what an administrator position looks like. The authorities and where we want check and balance on an administrator, that's still a moving target. There's some aspects where I get marching orders to kind of go solve this problem for us, come back and tell us what it looks like. There's other things then become more hands-on on, we really want to have our hands on the levers on this. Can you help facilitate it? Where we arrive at that, I'm not going to take personal offense onto it. And if that's something that you would like to petition for, then I'd say a motion from the body and a request to committee on committees to consider. That kind of becomes a decision of the 21 that hired me and is spending quite a bit of tax dollars on me on how much authority in those decisions that I should be making versus the input that they would like from committees. So that would be my recommendation if you'd like to consider that. Motion to committee on committees to consider this the next time we fill.
Yeah.
I just have a quick clarification. So this commission is a subcommittee of the county board. We report to the county board, or what is the structure?
That's right.
Okay. Because way back when, actually the veterans used to come through the Health and Human Services Board and then that. So it would be appropriate that I think this commission would review any kind of people that were nominated for, a position, review that, then it is a motion to move it to committee on committees for consideration. We would actually say this is our choice, as I recall, and then it would be committee on committees that would review it, and then that they would then send it on to county board for final approval. And then I do recall it was two weeks in the official newspaper of the county to have to be posted for at least 2 weeks on that. That was my history of that.
Yep. No, and that would be correct on it. Again, I know in kind of reviewing on it, what was practice and what was policy. I guess what I found by policy is that the 2-week posting is required for supervisors with the 2 seats here not being supervisors. And again, there's nothing wrong with if we want to proceed like that and say that we would like to do this type of a posting or procedure. I have no interest in trying to buck a system as an administrator that's been here 1 year and say adamantly of this is still my appointment. I still have the state statute requirement though that
Right.
I am blessing off on a
Yeah.
candidate to bring or an
Right.
appointment to bring forward for ratification.
And while I agree, it's probably not policy. I think it's good common sense protocol because you want to be as open and honest as possible, putting it out to the community. Make sure you kind of cast a wide net and get a good representation from the community. So while it's not policy, it's still good common sense protocol, I think.
Okay, Karen?
Thing too, I think that, I don't think we should, just my opinion, I don't think we should do anything on it today. I kind of feel like there's probably some more research we need to do on this. My main question that just
Karen,
popped.
would you slightly closer to the
Oh, I'm sorry.
microphone?
The one question that popped in my mind, is this something that, considering applications, that you would do under closed session? Or is this something, because if it's public, like was just mentioned,
Yep.
then that could bring HIPAA.
There would be no entitlement to closed session because that would be specified to an employee, where this would be an official.
It would still have HIPAA if any veteran disclosed that they were disabled or any type of anything like that, service connected, knowledge about my office, the system, that would fall under HIPAA if they made that public. Or if they thought that they were just giving it to the county for your eyes only, then that could change. Just something to think about. I just want to make sure, because I take HIPAA very seriously, so.
Sure. And
Yeah, I think-
considerations would have to be given to that. If we had to do redactions, that would be appropriate. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Ben?
my concern and Mr. Severson's at the last meeting it wasn't so much whether we got an opinion on who they put in these positions, but we didn't even know who Mr. Metz was until the county board meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, whether we had a voice in who would be on the committee, we weren't even told who was going to be till we got to vote on it. That's just what I was concerned with.
Yeah, that's a point that I was just going to bring up exactly. I think that's right, because once we decided that we were going to go ahead and open this up, we had no idea who had applied, and that would affect us directly. And we had no idea who they finally selected. We didn't know until the meeting happened. In fact, I found out from Karen just prior to the meeting that you were coming on. So I think that the thing that I object to is the fact that once it left here, they did their thing without us having any knowledge, let alone input as to what went on. And I think we, the group that's affected by this, should have been a part of that.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, I think that's an issue that the administrator can iron out for us, and
Yes.
I think we can move on.
Well, I think what happened here, it was a very unusual thing that you lose committee members, during the course of the 2-year stint that we're on, or 3 years. And so it was very unusual. That's why we had 2 different ways of dealing with it, because we've never done it before. And I think if that were to come up now that Clint is in line for that kind of thing, that we'd kind of work things out as it came. I don't think we'd run into the same problem again with the hierarchy being, more solidified than it had been. Karen?
Just to kind of add a little bit to what Don just mentioned, it made me think of something. If this is affecting this committee, chances are this is an actual county issue, and this might be something that the Committee on Committees could put on their agenda and discuss at a larger whole than just our committee, if you would feel comfortable with
Well,
that.
I think you're totally correct. Clint, when you go to Committee on Committees, could you bring that up and just ask them to, whatever group it happens to be, this happens to be the veterans group, but if there were any other groups that kind of ran into the same kind of problem, that, they kind of share their information with that particular group so that they were aware as things proceeded. I think if we did that, I think that would satisfy a lot of the problems that we've raised here today. Don?
Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy with the appointees that have been given us,
Mhm.
and unless someone is excessively disappointed or exceedingly disappointed, they should let us know. We haven't heard a complaint from anyone.
No, not at all.
So let's move on.
Yes. So, I think that's settled. Clint will take this to committee on committees, and it's simply a matter of being informed. You know, we want to be a part of that process, whether it be active or inactive. We just want to be knowledgeable of what's happening. So with that having been done, we can move to number 8, Veterans ETK software update. Did you want to do that? Or-
Yes, please. So after working with ETK, he's a very nice gentleman. His name is Andrew Duke, is the one that we've been working with for about a year and a half. So when we talked about cost and we talked about procedure going forward, we have to sign a user licensing contract. And so I need this committee's approval to push that to county board, because I cannot sign the user agreement. I can't sign a contract without the county's permission.
Okay.
And it will either be I or Clint that will need to sign it. I've spoke with him, brought him up to speed. And so this is just the next step in what we need to do, but everything is ready. After we get this user, it'll be full speed ahead.
Okay, Clint, what would be the procedure on doing that? Could we approve that here and then you and Karen sign it together, or does this have to go to the full board?
It has to go to full board.
Okay, so if you'd see that gets on our next agenda for the full board so that this can be taken care of, please.
What I do is I'll get back to my office and I will notify the county attorney that we need a resolution made up and what the verbiage would say. And she'll specify to us who gets to sign it. Hopefully it'll be me as the user signing the user statement. And then I had some questions for Andrew. If Barb should also sign as the user, since she oversees all the computer programs. I think that's what I want to do, is make sure she's on it.
Yeah.
So there's some other things that legality wise that need to go through, but I'll let you know what Core Counsel Julie Dadune says at the next committee meeting.
Okay. Barb, this is something that we spoke of last time, that as the person head of this group, that you have total control of that you're the overseer of this system. So is that what you're saying?
No, I oversee access for county systems, but I'm not. So I oversee access for county systems, but I don't have like total control over this system. It's controlled by the federal government, if I'm not mistaken. So that's, while I do regulate county control, if someone from HHS leaves, I'm responsible for making sure that their access to programs are closed down, or any other department. So that's where my role is. It's not in controlling anything. It's just making sure the access is closed as employee turnover happens.
Yeah. Maybe control was the wrong word, I'm sorry, but I wanted to make sure that you were part of that hierarchy that took care of this, and that you were not shut out.
Yep. Nope. That's what I mentioned.
Good.
Is that I wanted to have Barb Scott added to it as a user agreement. I just mentioned that a minute ago. So
Definitely agree. Any other comments on that?
No, Mr. Chairman, just to define the relationships here a little bit. This committee no longer has the function of giving the employee or the manager, veteran service officer, direct orders or given directions. We make recommendations. We have the authority to ask questions, and we have the authority to require her to report information to us. In terms of giving direction to her, her direction comes from the administrator. She reports directly to the administrator, and in this case, she would bring this matter to the administrator, and he would determine whether she brings it forward or he takes it from there. But that's the clear line of that's the chain of command. She reports to the administrator, and she takes her direction from him in terms of direct orders. We merely make recommendations to the administrator. We also make requests, and we have the right to require whatever information that is deemed reasonable from the. That's why we're here, to We're here to hold the employees, the Veteran Service Office accountable to the taxpayers and to the community and to the county board.
Okay,
We are a committee of the county board.
yes. So thank you, Don. Karen?
So I guess I wanted to give you guys an update. And thank you for letting me go through on this program that I desperately needed. The one thing that I really need today is a motion so that I can move it forward to the county board. That's really the only reason that I brought it to committee, is because I need the motion that recommended that we enter into a contract and that
Okay.
we're allowed to sign.
So what you just said, does anybody want to move that?
Does this not have to go to Personnel Finance Committee?
Well, it comes from this and goes to personnel, so this is our approval, I would guess. Is that right, Clint?
No, as Karen said, you're going to be making a recommendation for a resolution to the county board to enter into a contract with ETK, is that correct? And through their county board rules, the county
I
board
make
is the
that,
only
I
folks
make
that can
that
enter into a
motion.
contract.
Mr.
Okay, so it
Administrator.
comes from us and goes to them then. I just want to make sure.
I make that motion.
Okay, Don makes the motion to carry this forward. Second, please. Okay, Sherry seconds that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Karen, it's passed. So, conference report. Karen, you went to a conference just recently, and so stage is yours.
I handed out handouts. You asked for 5 things. So I just did a little bit of a write-up. If you have any questions about what you read, it was at the Kalahari, in the Dells. It was all 72 counties and all 11 tribes. There was one county that did have permission to, well, there was like assistance and stuff like that, but they were able to log in. It was wonderful. There was so much new and so many new faces. This was Pete's first conference, so he was able to learn a lot. I think he had quite a few takeaways, and getting to know some of the other CVSOs. He definitely made some connections, and got business cards. We learned about new products that are coming out, new hearing aids. There's a new program that they want to bring to Richland County, and it's to deal with veteran suicide. They want to work directly with local gun shops. Signs to look for when people are coming in to purchase, if they admit that they're a veteran, things that they say. And so the gentleman is going to, I told him if he wanted to call the office, I could give him all of the public information on gun shops that we have. He also gave me a booklet to take to the local gun store just so that they could kind of look at it first prior to doing it. And then the other thing that I just really wanted to make sure that you guys knew, Madison, VA, suicide prevention, the SAVE that's on your sheets. This is a new coordinator, and he is motivated, and I like him immensely. So I spoke with him afterwards. I've got 10 years as a master resiliency instructor, a trainer for the military. I'm also suicide prevention. I'm an instructor who teaches others how to become suicide intervention instructors. And when I spoke with him, he was extremely excited. And so me and my office are going to coordinate with him and incorporate resiliency into suicide training in the Madison VA. So we're going to work hand in hand with him. I'm really excited about it. And he sounded very ecstatic as well. So this will not take away from my daily office hours. This will be something that I do on top of it. But I'm really excited to incorporate that in. Resiliency is very important instruction and a good tool on your tool belt.
Yes, Sherry.
Karen, I appreciate this, but I think that we should learn more about this program before we assent to it. I don't know how much the administrator has been informed of this, but I certainly would value a report from him before we give our recommendations or input. I would not proceed until you have a recommendation from this committee.
This is,
And currently, we don't have enough information to do that. When you mentioned gun shops in the community, I'm not so sure that the county board is interested in a liaison with gun shops at this point, because it's a very controversial issue throughout the county. I think that's outside of the purview of your normal duties. And so I believe you need to have a conference with our administrator, those issues straightened out before you proceed. And I would move that that the veteran service officer not proceed or commit herself to any programs like the one she just described until we have the input from our administrator. That's my motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Having heard that, does anybody care to second it? Okay, Van seconds it. Discussion. Karen?
I'd like to apologize to the committee. I may have been speaking too quickly. They're two separate things. So the gentleman that was going to call, he just wanted it from the local phone book, the name of the gun store.
Okay.
They're completely separate. These are two completely different programs. So he just wanted public information. And then the second program, the one through Madison VA, that's the one with the resiliency that I'm going to assist with. But it's not going to, it has nothing to do with the Veterans Office. It just has from, my office will benefit from it, but I will do it on my own time. But the gun store has absolutely nothing to do with us, my office, me. Yeah. I've never been in the gun store. I don't like gun stores. I stay away from gun stores. I don't want anything to do with it. He just wanted to know if I could produce the phone number. Okay. And this is nothing. I was just giving you an update from what I learned at conference.
Okay.
I would like to see more information. I'd like to see the documentation from the program and the VA in Madison. I don't think that you should be making these decisions solely without input from the county. We represent the county here.
Hey, Karen, I think that you're dealing with the other person to enhance what it is that you do and he does the programs. I think that's excellent. If there's anything formal that has to come from that, then we can deal with it. So my guess is the motion at this point may be moot. A little more discussion on that possibly. We may have to vacate that motion. Don?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Why is the motion moot? It's been made and seconded. It belongs to the body.
Okay, so that's where we're at right now, but further discussion on that item. Sherry?
Actually, I didn't take it as she was entering into anything new that needed, a motion. She's reporting back to this body about the 5 takeaways from the conference. I would suggest that, and I understand where Don is coming from, if you are entering into something new that affects your work within the Veteran Service Office and entering into a new program, that would come to us for information about what that is, what that means for your time, costs, anything like that. But I don't take that as what this is being reported as. This is just went to a conference. This is one new thing I learned about. And if you decide to enter into that within your purview as the county's Veteran Service Office, then you bring it to us, and we would then motion, whether we, agree to that or not, because we have to be conscientious about how you spend your time, if you have time, and if we have the the ability to support it financially and all of that. So, so I didn't take it as that. I think the once conversation's done, it's then we vote to approve or to accept Don's motion and Van's second. If it fails, and that's how it gets off. That, so we can't just stop it at that point.
Yes,
Thank
totally
you,
agree.
Patrick. One comment, one question. Mr. Administrator, have you been informed about this issue?
Don't see where there's any, as Commissioner Metz kind of mentioned, we're not entering into it any type of county type of an issue. We provided public information in a phone book, and there is another program that's in tandem that Karen is looking to learn more about, is where I'm at it. So I don't know if there's any.
So we're in the process of learning more about it. We're not entering into kind of a commitment. Is that right?
That is my understanding based on what I've heard here today, Supervisor Seep.
That was also my understanding. Sherry, did you have a comment?
Question, why was Richland County chosen? Do we have a history of having a fair number of suicides? I was just curious why Richland County was chosen.
So when you go to these conferences, these people that have these interests, they set up tables and they show areas that they work out of. This was not Richland County. This was, he asked every county in the state. This was a legitimate organization that was brought forth from Dane County. It was not specifically directed at us. They just said, here's a booklet if you'd like to read about it. I have no interest in reading about it because I don't have any interest in shooting. And so that's why it will be provided to the gun shop. I don't need to read it. It's just going straight to him.
Hey, Sherry, okay. Okay, Van, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, it's been kind of laid out for us, so I guess it's time for the vote. All those in favor of Don's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no?
No.
No. Maybe we better do a show of hands or
No,
voice
that's fine.
vote.
I have no objection.
So it did not pass, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so the
My
motion,
ears.
yeah, so the motion has failed. So we are at that point where we can deal with that later if something more should come of it. Karen?
I will definitely keep you updated on the Madison VA
Yeah.
prevention policy. But again, this is a Army thing.
Yes.
Just one of my tools in my tool belt that I utilize, and they just want me to share my knowledge with them. But the other separate thing, there will be nothing more further on that. That has nothing to do with us.
Well, if something more should come, then we'll kind of deal with it at that time. But it seems like there's, it's just stuff that you're reporting to us and different connections that you've made that may enhance other programs, and that's kind of where we'll leave it. So thank you all for participating in that. So that was the conference report number 9. Is there anything further, Karen, or is that it?
Supervisor Steep, if you could do me a favor and repeat your motion, I just want to make sure that I got it correctly.
My motion basically was that the veteran service officer should not commit to any programs in behalf of Richland County or the Veteran Service Office without the input of the committee and the consent of the administrator.
And if you didn't get it all, this is being recorded, right? So we're,
No, yep, I'm good. Thank you.
But I think you're great. So thank you. Okay, flag costs. Van brought this up last time. So Karen, is that this? No, that's not that sheet. Did you?
Yes, the top heading says
Oh, yeah,
3,215 flags.
So the cost for 1218, is that 18-inch flags?
Correct.
Okay, and that's $1.08 per flag?
Yes.
Okay.
And we buy everything in gross.
Okay. And a gross meaning basically a
144.
Okay. So what we have here is basically where we're going. So 12, it's $1.08. If you buy eight 12-inch flags, it's 82 cents, or 4 6s. And you're talking totals. And what is it that we get here?
This is brought up by Van Nelson last month about
Right.
the cost ratios between the flags. It took us 4 years, almost 5 actually. We started in 2017 and we gave people the option on what size they wanted. And then slowly they've come because the small ones are more durable, and they last longer because there's not so much fabric beating
Right.
it. So the concern that Van Nelson brought up was that was the size of the sticks that the flags flew on, because the 12 by 18s are on a thicker stick. So I called the company. I called a couple of companies. They talked to their dealers. They said this was the first time they'd had any kind of concern like this before. And what I asked them to do was to give us a price quote for the smaller flags on the bigger dowels. So I did hear back from her. I made contact with her again just a couple of days ago, and she said that she had spoken to a couple of vendors so far, and that they had never been approached with this either, and so they would have to look into it. A couple of them flat out said, no, we don't do that, and she's still waiting to hear back from a couple other ones. But I just wanted to give you the cost ratio between the difference and why I made.
The thing is, the stick size doesn't conform marker size. The marker has with the larger stick, where the small stick slides right through or can out because they're just way too small. And once did the size of the flag doesn't it's just whether it's going to stay older.
Yep.
And if the holders are going to be that big, we should have the stick that
Yep.
fits it right.
And that was the concern of Commissioner Seep that followed up on that conversation. So I just wanted to address your dowels. I am trying. I'm still looking. But as of yet, no one uses the bigger dowels with the smaller flags. But it is a good idea, so I'm going to keep looking.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what is in the budget, Karen, for your annual budget for flags? And how much are we spending? What's the budget line?
Yep. And so the copy of the budget report,
No, I just want to know, what do you have in the budget for flags?
for flags, I have $1,500. And flag holders is a separate one. But if I run out of money in one, then I have to use the other one.
But we're within bounds, we're okay.
Oh, absolutely. We're golden.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, to what Van had spoken of before, do they make inserts or something that can be placed in the ones to accommodate smaller flag sticks? Go ahead.
So we have a cemetery in Casanova, actually, specifically, that he thinks it's a raccoon. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. He thinks there's something doing it. But he has a couple of flags that every morning he comes out to check the cemetery and the flags are out. So none of the other 400, just these couple. And he thinks that like a raccoon or something is pulling them out. So what he has done to remedy the situation is he has wrapped rubber bands on the bottom of so that they can't be pulled out. My benefit specialist actually had an idea that the office could purchase grommets, the rubber grommets that slide up the pole, the big kind of thick rubber bands, so that you wouldn't have to wrap them around, you just have to slide them on. And it wouldn't be for all the sticks, obviously, it'll just be for the ones that they think little furried mass bandits are pulling them out, if you're having reoccurring problems. And if that's the case, then we could provide those in the office because they're like 40 cents for 100 of them or something like that. And I would have no problem keeping those in my office to help avoid situations like that.
Good, thank you. Van, if that's something you could accommodate or use for yours?
Yeah. Right.
The flag in the market. Then the dollar. Flags. If you can't find one, find some more place. Put the right size flag up.
Is it,
Right.
Putting these flags on the graves wasn't just for veterans. For veterans of their lives in war.
Right.
So I think I don't remember why we're putting flags on here. Not just because you were in service, but because you lost your life in a service. 32 cents.
Right.
Put your flag in fits and now have to shoot. Keep it up.
Karen?
I've had, this is one of maybe two criticisms against this size flag. Most of the other cemeteries in Richland County are very happy with them because they last longer, they're more durable. So I have no problem in taking a poll between the other cemeteries and putting together just a little bit of an opinion on what size that they most preferred, because most people are they prefer the small flags, because for the first 3 years during our changeover, we gave them an option if they wanted the big ones or the small ones, and they always chose the small ones. We had one cemetery this year that has 6, and they requested the big ones.
It sounds like some of these things are in transition.
Mhm.
Is it possible to get some of each so that, you know, they could accommodate the voters?
They like to stay uniform. And the cemeteries that share, because we have 3 cemeteries, 3.5-ish, Blue River, that we share county lines. And so all the counties around us have the smaller flags. And so they don't like that it's not uniform, that the ones that are in Crawford County are the smaller ones and ours are completely different. And so they really liked that we conformed to all the counties around us also.
Yeah. Well, that conformity is a good thing, but we're still left with some of the older ones that might be a little larger. Is there some way of getting smaller numbers to accommodate?
Like I said, I will definitely ask the other cemeteries for their opinions before I make a decision on this.
Okay.
It's entirely possible that I could keep both in the office so that we just, instead of trying to phase them out, we just keep both sizes in the office.
Okay, Patrick?
Yeah, I just had, how many flags do you go through within a year? Is it the 3,216?
That's how many I have to keep on hand.
Okay. And then, as Van was mentioning, so do you, if they are meant really for service members who have died in service, then are we doing that? Or is it just kind of going out to whoever, requests them?
All veterans. Cemeteries request them.
So-
It's all veterans. They tell me
it's
the
all
numbers.
veterans.
If they serve, they get a flag.
Okay, okay.
And
So,
that number, that 3,216 does increase every year.
right,
Those are the numbers that were used prior to Memorial Day. So
Right.
when the new figures,
Yeah.
I agree.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, right, right. I would agree. I mean, there's $2,000 in the budget, so, right.
Yeah.
So it's $2,000 in the budget. You would just have to figure out how you're going to pay for that, and that's fine. So do we know, getting back to your point about the doll size, I mean, I can't imagine they can't accommodate that.
I'm still looking into it, I promise. This is going to be ongoing. I'm not going to it doesn't stop after this. I will continue to look into the dowel sizes.
And I apologize. My questions are, I'm new to this and I just need to know a bit more information about this. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
not a problem. We appreciate that.
Yeah. But we do have a budget issue and that would have to go through,
Yeah. So why
proper
don't,
channels.
Karen, if you put that on our agenda for next time, we can continue this discussion. And what I would recommend is that we get some of each so we accommodate those that have gone to
And that's
you
what
know,
I,
the standard
Yep.
size, but we still have the older ones that they may not want to give up because they've
Yep.
got, a basic emotional value to the people. who
Apparently.
they belong to, so if we can get some of each so that
Yep,
we can
and
take
that's,
care of
I'm
that.
just gonna continue on as what I've
So,
been doing.
If you look into that, and let's bring it back up next time, and
If
Van's
they
right.
request the big flags, that's
yeah.
what they get.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of leave it lay at that point then, if that's okay. We're all right then? Okay, so we will let that be. Number 11, monthly visitors log. I believe we've got that here in front of us. Karen, any comments?
None that I can think of, but any questions I can answer, please let me know.
So your numbers for May were up 11 from the previous month. It says 36 at the base. Okay, well, I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. The VA form log, would you like to take a moment with that, please?
Sure. Yeah, any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any commission members have anything to ask about that? So June goes up to yesterday, right?
For the forms log, because they require the totals, I don't total them up and tally them up until the end of the month. So what you're looking at is for May only.
Right.
So at July's committee meeting is when you'll see June's numbers.
You have a column here with the numbers of the forms. Both numbers of the forms. Right. What side of this?
The column on the left, this is the same form as last month. This has been the approved form, so just exactly the same one from last month. Yep.
We talk about, you know, the public is more and more listening to these meetings.
Yes.
And a number, whether it's a 556 or a Form 21 or a 1010 EZ, that doesn't mean anything to the general public. But if we say that this is the translation of this is that this is a form applying for for enrollment in the health insurance plan, then the public knows. And so if we ask, well, how many people did you come in and ask for help in signing up for health insurance to be enrolled in the health insurance plan? And you said, well, there were 7 people that, you know, the public understands that, but they don't know what a 1010 EZ is. And so I think that you should anglicize these codes and put the name of the service that you're providing alongside it. Because we are talking about these things, not just here, but publicly. People are listening in, and there's a public record of it. And if we just say, well, here's the report, and we don't explain it, or if we don't verbalize what these things are about, it doesn't mean anything to anybody who's listening to it, unless you're going to attach these reports to the minutes so that people can look at the minutes on the internet and read them, which we're not doing. So can we do that? Can we make these so that they're understandable to the public?
Aaron?
This is the approved form by this committee. If you would like it changed, I will absolutely do anything that you ask. This is the exact same one that Vernon County uses. This is the exact same one that a lot of other counties use. So the only thing that I would like to remind everyone that these forms are completely 100% findable on the internet. You can research them and see exactly what it is. Plus, I answer to this committee, so if you have questions, I have no problem in answering what these forms are.
Okay, what I would recommend, January, February, March, you gave us this that was handwritten, the numbers. And on that, you had a description of what each of these numbers represented. Is it possible to revert back to this form so that we've got the actual description of what those numbers mean?
If
And,
you,
you know, because it'd be very easy to translate this, you know, this to this, where you've actually got, you know, the information that you had recorded originally. Is that a possibility that you can just transfer it?
if you would like me to revert back to the old form, I have no problem in doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is the form that we had that description on there.
Yeah, not the new one, that's that was the one that was
Yeah.
requested, but if you want me to revert back to that one, I have no problem.
I think the just looking at this and being new, I had no idea what this was. So a title would be nice, just so that it would be like, okay, that's what that is.
I'm with
And
you.
then these numbers, and just to be just an idea is that, you know, it doesn't have to be something that comes to this committee, but if you have a list, because I'm sure that you put in 20-22 and 210966 and whatever, you can have an attached, you know, kind of a listing of what each one is. You know, I can help you with that. You know, in fact, you can have it so that it would link right out to these. So whoever had this could just click on the link and it takes it right to them. I mean, technology is so incredibly easy these days that, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do to make this more accessible for folks. And I always look at it from that perspective, is if you're putting information out there, that it's very clear as to what it is. And then if someone is looking for a particular forum, it is just so easy for them to find it. It just hyperlinking it. If this is out on your website, or if you know, have this electronically, there's a lot of ways that you can make it more accessible to veterans as well. And I'm not, this is not a criticism. This is just, I always look at when you're sharing information, you share it in a way that is very clear, not to you, but for someone completely unaware of what's going on or what this really is representing. You want to make sure that no matter who picks it up knows exactly what it is and what it means and what it represents. It's only, and it's in your favor too, because then you don't have someone like me going, what is this? And what is that? You know, it helps you with that thing. And I can certainly help you with that. I
Okay.
do this every day.
Thank you, Patrick. Aaron?
These are the approved forms that the committee wanted, so if you want them altered, I can do that. Please just let me know.
And I'm new to the committee, and I, you know, this is
Typically, committee, we would not even have a form like this and make these reports to a committee, but this committee has asked for it.
right.
And this is the form that they provided.
And
This is a committee report, and so the
Right.
public would not see this. I make a report to the state every year
I understand.
where this
Okay.
number's
I
actually.
understand that, but
Thank
I
you.
also, as a committee member, represent the community, and then so, you know, sometimes the community would like to know what's going on. You know, how are we serving veterans? And this is an advocacy tool for you too. As I look at things, it's not about just something in the office to say, oh yeah, I got to go through this, and you know, this is how many veterans came in. You know, what you can show then is say, you know, this is how busy we are. You know, this is something you can take to the community when they ask you to say, look, this is how busy I am. This is how many veterans come in. These are the forms that they're looking for. This is what my workload is. And again, this is something that helps you go to a county board and say, or come to this commission and say, boy, I tell you what, you know, this is what, it's been a busy month and this is what has happened. Yep.
No problem in changing it again. Whatever the committee wants, just let me know.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we discussed this a lot, and this, we said all along that this process is a work in progress and that we may want to make changes from time to time to improve our reporting and our accountability. I thank Patrick for his comments, and I think he's right on, and I think the committee should assent to Patrick working his offer to working with Karen to make these reports more accountable to the general public. It's not true that the public doesn't see this. They do see it because it's supposed to be accountable to them. Every document that we produce is a public record, and anybody in the public can see it. as a matter of public accountability and public relations, this should be an attachment to the minutes so that everybody in the public can see. Just the veterans would appreciate seeing it, but everyone should see it. It's on the internet. Thank you.
Okay, I think we need to put an end to this. Yes, what you had done originally had that information on it. What we got today has numbers that mean nothing to anyone outside of your office. And I think Don is correct in saying that other people will see this. Other people are watching us right now or will see us in the future because this will be posted. And what Patrick had to say is exactly right on. So if you did a combination of the two with a proper heading and the information describing what those numbers actually mean, this was understandable, whereas this is not. So I think by consensus, we don't need to vote on this. By consensus, if you agree with going back to the old way with the descriptions and with Patrick going, if you consent, please raise your hand. So by consensus, we would like you to kind of revert back to this. And Patrick, if you need a copy of this, I think Karen's got some. If not, I can give you mine. So, well, thank you very much. And then moving forward, let's see, VA forms, logs, surveys. We didn't do surveys yet, did we? Okay, so Karen, surveys.
Sherry had asked for maybe a Dropbox outside of the office or somewhere people could leave like feedback for the office. We have always done feedback. I love feedback. I am a huge fan of it. So I provided you the surveys that we used to use. It was temporarily suspended when the new committee came on. I would love to start using these again, please. So as you can see, this form is what we've used for 6 years. And if anyone circles yes at the bottom, the committee chair in the past has reached out to them. Sometimes they just have questions. Sometimes you get funny little, please put popcorn maker in office, on the bottom there. But I think veterans appreciate these surveys. I appreciate these surveys. I think that the committee should value these surveys. There was some discussion on putting names on them. And so I changed the wording under the name category to optional. And then I decided what would be best would be to just completely cut the names off. And if they want to be called, then they can identify themselves to Lee. And that way it still remains anonymous unless they don't want it to be anonymous. I love these surveys. I want to use these surveys. If you guys could give me the go ahead to start using them again, I would be eternally grateful.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
As you know, I have had a history of being concerned about these surveys as they were implemented and the way they were designed. The questionnaires were handed to the veterans when they came into the office after whatever service was provided to them, and they were asked to fill it out. And some veterans, and I know this for a fact, fill it out in front of the veteran service officer or whoever was servicing them. The lack of independence and the bias that's implicit in doing that kind of a survey is sort of analogous to, speaking of the military, walking through the chow line and the chef asks you how you like the food. Well, you're going to tell them that you like the food if you want to get good service the next time you come in. And if you tell them no, you might not get good service. So that's not the way to do an independent professional survey. It was stated that they never saw the surveys, yet The veteran service officer brought them to the meeting herself. She had access to them. There was no chain of custody ensured in the handling of those survey questions. And as far as the names were concerned, we were advised twice by our corporate attorney that the display of the name, the disclosure of the name to anyone outside of the authorized person who can see them, that's the veteran service officer, who can see the names of veterans who come into the office, is a violation of privacy. We as committee members have absolutely no business knowing the names of people who go into the office for assistance, period.
Okay.
And we were advised of that. So I would say this: if you want to have a survey, let's consider getting professional help in designing a survey. Committee members shouldn't be designing it. The administrator can find the resources to have an independent survey done, a suggestion box that would be secure and available to veterans. Fine, maybe we need a suggestion box for the whole county. But I do not want veterans to come into that office and then be asked to fill out a survey that says, well, how am I doing? You know, well, what kind of service am I going to get next time I come in if I tell her you're not doing very well? And the other thing is, you know, the statement was made, well, 500 surveys on file. Yet we never saw a survey that indicated the complaint. Who the hell is going to write out a complaint to somebody when you're filling it out in the offices and handing it to the people who served you? Enough of this. It's a violation of privacy, and if we're going to have a survey, put it in the administrator's hands and ask him to find resources outside of the office to the benefit of the county. I make a motion that no more action be taken on this until we receive a response after consideration from our administrator. So I'd advise Karen to talk to the administrator about this and get advice. But I don't want to see this done any other way. So I make a motion to cease and desist on this question.
Well, I don't think a motion is necessary at this point. But what I wanted to do is to ask Patrick, who's probably had more experience with this. But anyways, okay. So the motion is there that we cease and desist with this idea for the time being. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Sherry, did you have a comment?
Protected communication is what comes up for me. That's huge. That's what needs to happen here. And so this is, and I think there are some better questions that could be asked as well. And I have a feeling that, again, versus reinventing a wheel, there has to be some county out there that has a darn questionnaire that we could benefit from versus reinventing a wheel again. So that's my recommendation. It does need to be protected, so it does need to be secure, that particular box that we're talking about.
Okay, Patrick?
I would concur. I agree with the protected, you know, they need to be anonymous. And I agree that the first question is, what's the purpose of the survey? What information do you want to know, you know, and why? You know, just knowing that the appearance of the audit of the office, appearance of staff. I mean, you know, what does that do? You know, who is asking that? What is the purpose of knowing that? My assumption is, if you're a professional and you're in an office, that you are dressed appropriately and that the office is in good repair because the county, you know, and the office takes care of it. You know, there are more pertinent questions and more important things to probably know about the people that you're serving. So I would say that as this is written, and it needs to be redone. I think this is done on a mimeograph back in the 1960s or 70s, but I do think it needs to be redone and done in a way that is asking questions that are actually useful, pertinent to the purpose, and actually identifying what is the purpose of the survey.
Okay. Don, would you restate your motion, please?
Well, my motion was to not take any further action with regard to this proposal that Karen has made, and that the whole matter be referred to the administrator, and that Patrick could, and to Patrick, who has a lot of experience with this kind of thing, so professionally.
Okay, so the motion is to look at this further, not to deal with this any further until we have our county administrator, maybe with the assistance of Patrick or anyone else that may have had an extended experience with this kind of thing, and looking into others, not to reinvent the wheel, as Sherry had said. So, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. This is something that we should put on the next agenda. That's something we should ask Clint maybe to look into with some help from others, and maybe Karen to go to some other counties that may have this kind of evaluation, so that we have some ideas to what it is that we're looking for. I do think this is quite elementary, and it needs to, there's a lot more that should come out than this. So having said that, we can move on then. Okay. Karen, did you have anything further?
Oh, thank you for your consideration of the surveys, and I look forward to future conversations about it.
I think this is something that we do need to do, but not in this form. So then we go to the budget report. Aaron?
We're still under budget for the year. I did have one thing that kind of pertains to the budget. June 14th, we received a $122 check in the mail from the Disabled American Veterans Auxiliary from Kentucky. And they wrote a letter explaining what it was to be used for. It was to be used for veterans' families with children with emergency needs. And I've turned this check into the treasurer. And what I plan on doing with that is the American Legion here in town goes along with a couple of other organizations, and they have a needy veterans fund. And I'm going to put that $122 into the, donate it to the needy veterans fund for the American Legion here in town.
I don't see that on these forms.
No. That's May's report, and the check just came in on June 14th.
Oh, I see.
So I just wanted to give you guys an update that once it clears and once it's been deposited, because this check is very different than anything we usually receive, Julie, the treasurer, is working with Josh Bell to find what line item it's going to go into, and then immediately afterwards, I'm going to be distributing that money and donating it to the Needy Veterans Fund, because that's what they do, exactly what they do, what they use that
Well,
for.
that's extremely unusual, I would guess. I think a letter of thanks should be sent to them.
Oh, yep, I've already written it.
Excellent, thank you.
Can we see, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Karen, would you send a copy of your letter of thanks to the members of the committee? And secondly, we have a needy veterans fund here with the county. Why isn't it going into our own fund?
If you want it to go into the Soldiers and Sailors Fund, I can do that. If you would prefer, if that's what
There is a policy, there has been a policy that all donations go into the general fund and can be restricted for whatever purpose they were given by the accounting department. And in this case, they were given for needy veterans. we have to be careful not to use, and they therefore become county funds designated for the veterans or their families. But we have to be careful not to be transferring funds to another nonprofit organization, which the American Legion is, as a government entity, and every donation that comes in must go to the general fund, as I understand it. So I think you should get the advice of our administrator on this before you decide what to do with it.
Thank you. I'll definitely do that, Don. Thank you.
I totally agree. Clint, would you like to weigh in on this, please?
He does, sorry.
We don't have a formalized policy, I believe, on where donations currently go to right now. There's several different accounts that the Veteran Service Office works with. We can talk with it offline and come with a solution on it. Part of our overall strategic plan is to put in place with a finance policy, having a section in it of how donations are treated, how they migrate, how they're stored, specifications on what those funds should be used for, appropriateness of also having language of ensuring that it's not used in a fungible action, if that is the purpose, to not reduce levy types of dollars against it. So it's a thing that has been identified across the organization, and we have on our radar. We just haven't found the bandwidth to move forward with it and get it in place.
Would you suggest that we hang on to this money for the time being until a decision is made as to how this can legally be accepted?
If that is your comfort, I guess, do you have the check is probably though on a date of becoming null and void at some point? Is that correct?
Endorsed the check and turned it into the treasurer's office. She wrote me a receipt for it.
Okay, so we have it in funds in the house.
Yes, it's already in
Okay.
there. It's already in there. And
So
I won't do anything
Okay.
without discussing it with Clint, because Josh Bell and Julie in the treasurer's office are still trying to decide what to do with it, because they don't have any guidance on this either. So I'm not going to do anything until the county has made policy.
Okay, Sandy
Well-
Kramer is the chairperson. I'm not sure what your title would be. Please come and use my mic and speak.
Here. May I sit down? May I sit down?
Very gracious that you thought of giving it to the American Legion. As she stated, we do have a needy veterans account, but we are a nonprofit organization, and for us to track that amount of money for the finance officer to use that specific amount for needy veterans with children would cause a little bit of a more work for our finance officer. I would prefer that you discuss this with your administrator, and it's not that we would not appreciate the money, but for us to sit down and track, well, this is only supposed to be used, this amount's only supposed to be used for veterans with children. We have a lot of needy veterans that don't have children. We have a lot of needy veterans that aren't even married. And we look at that account for everyone, not just specifics. So it's nice that your Veteran Service Officer thought about giving us that money, but I think it would open up a can of worms for the American Legion, as we have different times, different days, people come in asking for money for gas, for food, for money to spend a night in a hotel. And there are some people that don't know that if we have this $120 some odd dollars, we can't touch that unless it's for a veteran with children. So I think that some of that might get lost through the cracks and be used for something that it's not supposed to be used for.
Thank you, Sandy. What is your title?
The adjutant right now over at the American Legion, and I'm the president of the American Legion Auxiliary.
Very good. Thank you.
One thing you might want to consider is Sheila has a better perspective on this, but the auxiliary has a Poppy account. But again, it's for veterans in need, and they don't specify whether or not they have children. So again, I think some of that money would be lost through the cracks and used for something it should not be used for.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. Karen, so if we'll just kind of hold on to that, we'll let Clint do a little research on that, and then we'll kind of decide what to do it, either within this meeting if we need to, or because it was specified, maybe it could go directly to an account that would accommodate its purpose. Patrick, did you have a comment?
I do. I just was looking at the three budget sheets and just want to get a little clarification. So the veteran services grant is over budget by like $500. My understanding is that that kind of bleeds over into the veteran service, the main amount. It's used for the same purpose, just that it's overdrawn on the one, and so there would just have to be probably an adjustment. I don't know how you guys were going to do that, or journal entries to make it kind of flush, because auditors will look at that and go, well, what's going on there?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I can't hear.
So it was just that the veteran services grant is over budget, but I just trying to understand. So that's over budget, but my understanding, just by looking at what's being put into that, it actually covers costs that also the veteran service main account covers. So my guess is it just more expense went in there than what you had budget for, when it really just belongs in your veteran service, which is, well under budget. So I just want to make that clarification, because I'm new to this and I just want to understand that better.
Welcome to the club. We're all new at this.
Yeah. All right.
But so let's just hold off just a little bit, and then we can have Clint maybe look into that further so it gets into an appropriate account.
Mr. Chairman, are we still on the budget?
Yes. Is there
Uh,
anything further on the budget report that we need to
Yes,
discuss?
I have a question. I notice there's a line in the budget for $15,000, which is apparently was put in the budget for health care for as a part of salaries, and there's been no expenditures from that. Is that because the employee declined to take health insurance?
So
You see that $15,000 line?
when the employees first started working, they did have it. And so we had to budget for it appropriately again, but chose to drop it after the first year. So that 15,000 was added in thinking that the employee chose at the last moment to decline it and go with a different type of coverage. So that's why it was added.
So it's not, the $15,000 is not being spent, is that right?
At this moment, no.
Well, what do you mean at this moment? Do you
At this
anticipate,
moment, the employee does not have the health insurance.
do you anticipate that that some of that will be used before the end of the fiscal year?
That's unknown.
And Don, that's, when you create a budget, you create it with what you
Yes.
anticipate,
I
but
understand.
anticipation never always, comes
So
reality.
You would use
So
the potential
yes.
surplus.
So if the position would open up and a new person would come in and they would choose the health insurance, you have it covered. And so that's why you put it in there, is because typically you have to anticipate that whoever comes in accepts a family insurance. If they don't, that just means you have, additional monies that you can spend elsewhere if the committee is so
Okay.
moved to do that.
I understand that. And have we spent anything out of the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund yet?
There has been some, I saw that on the budget report, that there has been money that was taken out, $60, 90, out of for per diem for commission is taken out of there, as the report that you have.
Is that where the per diem for commissioners is normally?
Yeah, it's right on
Charged?
the budget sheets.
All right.
I did want to speak to the health insurance.
Certainly, go ahead.
A couple of years ago, I know things have changed in the county. It's an ever-evolving system, which I appreciate. So during the budget, because there was a budget committee, And they worked in hand with finance and personnel. And so as of a couple of years ago, this was the guidance. This is what they thought would be best for departments, was to earmark that health insurance money. So again, a budget is just an estimate. You guys know that. And so that's what I needed to be on the safe side, is to put that aside.
Totally understood.
Thank you.
Patrick gave a good explanation of that, and I think it's something that's pretty obvious to all of us here. Is there anything further on the budget that needs to be discussed?
Except that it's my understanding then that no money has been spent for needy veterans.
I've not received any applications yet, no. There are some local veterans organizations that donate money for like gas cards and Walmart cards. And so if we have veterans that come in that just need 20, 40 groceries, then they're provided with one of those gift cards
These are gift cards.
from other organizations, not from us.
I'm interested in how that's accounted for, but that's okay.
So,
One of the organizations that donates the cards is the Chapter 7 Vietnam Veterans, and Gail Surum can answer any questions you have about their gift cards and how much they spend in policies.
Thank you.
okay, I think that wraps up the budget report. Meeting minutes policy. I guess the thing I was concerned with was when I got that, maybe my computer, but when I got this, it was very difficult to read. And I just wanted to make sure that what goes out is readable, especially for Don and myself and anybody else that wears glasses, which is all of us. And that it fills the page and looks, well done. So other than that, that's all that I had, that I wanted to make sure that I gave you a copy of what I had. If we could do something like that, where you as the person that put this together, print it out so that it looks nice on both sides and it's large enough to read. That's my main concern. So other than that, there's nothing else there. Anybody else comment? Sherry, did you? Don?
No comment.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Don. Van? Okay. So long as it's readable and it's professional looking, and you use your best judgment when you put this together, that's all I'm asking. Okay? So with that having been said, we can go to the claims process, I'm sure, and timeline. What is that?
So I put this on the agenda. I know that the committee is always worried about claims and claim numbers. A claim isn't just a piece of paper. It's much like a legal action. You put together, there's much evidence, there's nexus letters, there's medical diagnosis. Sometimes it takes 6 months just to get somebody's DD-214 before you can begin the process, but you're working with them that whole time. And so I was going to just do I spoke with you briefly about doing this and trying to describe to the committee exactly how a claim is filed. However, because it is so intricate and so deep and so many O. Henry twists, I've decided to do a PowerPoint, and I briefly spoke with Barb about making that presentation to you next month, because it took way longer to put it together than I originally hoped. So if we can skip that and maybe just do it next month, I would be grateful.
Sounds good.
Thank
So
you.
put it on the agenda and let's do it that way then. Anything further on that then? Okay, then we get to the point where we have public input. Any of our guests here care to say anything or ask or make a statement? Well, thank you for attending. We appreciate it. Future agenda items. I think we've added a couple of them at this meeting as we were proceeding through the meeting. Is there anything else we need to consider for next month? Don?
Not at this time. If
Okay.
I think of something, I'll contact you.
Okay, sounds good. So at this point, I think we have our agenda pretty well set for next time. It'll be what we have right now, plus the additions of, that we've included along the way. Karen?
Just the other thing that will be going on it is a resolution to apply for this year's annual grant that comes out, which
Yes.
is another one of those contracts that you have to go to the county board. The Corp Council has already started working on it because much of the verbiage had to be changed from last year. So she's already started the process, and it will be done before the July meeting, because instead of Victor Vlasic, and then, so we just had to change some of the verbiage, and Clint has been kept abreast of the whole thing as well. And so I will have that resolution prepared for you so that you can review it prior to it going to the county board.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Future agenda items, I guess we did set a date for the next meeting. Karen, the date? Be July, it's the third Thursday of the month. I don't have my calendar here.
So July the 3rd Thursday.
15th? Is that, Clint, did you say 15th?
Correct.
So whatever the date is, the third Thursday of July,
15th. Yep.
or 15th, I'm sorry, in this room, 10 o'clock. And Clint is looking things up for us. Oh, okay. That's okay. That's as far as I know, yes. So we've set the date, I believe, the 15th, and we're set. So before we quit, I would love to see our meetings not go so long. We need to kind of shorten this up to an hour if at all possible. My stomach is starting to growl. And, you know, I think we need to try and consolidate and get through things as quick as we can. A lot of these items I think we can handle in a much briefer way. So if you, okay. So Don, shut your mic off. That's a joke. So anyways, this was a very good meeting. Thank you very much for attending. We appreciate it. I will accept the motion to adjourn. Okay, I saw a hand. Okay, Van makes the motion. Patrick seconds. All in favor? Aye.
All right, we're wasting so much of your time.
Stay plenty engaged, and it's a good exchange.
So thank you, thank you, thank you.
What address do you have for me?
Thank you, Barb.
To you?